Welcome to Clarity Reset, the podcast where we unplug, refocus, and rebuild the mind. I'm your host, Jeremy Jarvis, and this is episode 4, Why You Can't Focus Anymore, and How to Fix It. This is gonna blow your mind. In the digital age, focus feels like a fading skill. Our attention is constantly pulled in countless directions. The never-ending stream of notifications, messages, and updates makes it harder than ever to truly concentrate. We live in a world of constant stimulation where silence and stillness are rare commodities. Remember when you could lose yourself in a good book for hours? Or get completely absorbed in a challenging task, the world around you fading away? Today those moments seem fleeting, interrupted by the pings and buzzes of our devices. It's like our minds are fragmented, constantly switching between tasks and thoughts without ever fully settling. This isn't just a matter of inconvenience, it has real consequences. Our inability to focus deeply affects our work, our relationships, and even our own well-being. We feel scattered, overwhelmed, and constantly behind. The demands of the modern world seem to outpace our capacity to keep up. But there's hope. We can reclaim our focus. It takes effort, intentionality, and a willingness to step back from the constant noise. But it's possible to rediscover the power of a clear and focused mind. I'll be the first to admit, I've fallen victim to the distraction trap. I've felt the frustration of starting a task only to be sidetracked by a notification, or the allure of checking social media quickly. The guilt, the feeling of being constantly pulled in different directions. It's something I've grappled with personally, and I know I'm not alone. In my conversations with friends, family, and colleagues, I've heard the same struggles echoed time and again. The inability to focus, the constant feeling of being wired, and the longing for a sense of calm amidst the chaos. It's become clear to me that this is a collective experience, a byproduct of the always-on, hyper-connected world we live in. We're bombarded with information, stimulation, and demands on our attention from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to sleep. It's no wonder our minds are exhausted. But understanding this shared struggle is also empowering. It reminds us that we're not alone in this, that our struggles with focus aren't personal failings but rather a natural response to an unnatural environment. And more importantly, it gives us a starting point for change. The good news is that focus isn't lost forever. It's not a muscle that's atrophied beyond repair. Instead, it's more like a muscle that's been neglected, weakened by lack of use, but still capable of being strengthened. Reclaiming our attention is about more than just productivity or getting things done. Though those are certainly benefits, it's about reclaiming our mental space, our ability to be present, and our capacity for deep thought and connection. Imagine being able to fully engage in conversations without your mind wandering to your to-do list. Picture yourself tackling challenging tasks with a sense of focus and clarity you haven't felt in years. Think about the joy of experiencing the world around you without the constant distraction of your devices. This is the promise of reclaiming our attention, a return to a state of mental clarity, presence, and peace. It's a journey that requires effort and intentionality, but the rewards are immeasurable. This isn't about becoming superhumanly focused overnight. It's not about eliminating all distractions or becoming a productivity machine. It's about taking small, consistent steps to create a life where focus and clarity can thrive. It's about understanding the science behind our attention, recognizing the ways in which our environment shapes our minds, and developing simple yet powerful habits to reclaim our mental space. This is a journey back to ourselves, back to a place of inner stillness and clarity. It's a journey worth taking, and I invite you to join me. To understand why focus is such a struggle, we need to understand how our brains are wired. Our brains are reward-seeking machines, constantly on the lookout for anything that releases dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and motivation. In the past, dopamine was released in response to essential activities like finding food or shelter. Today, however, our digital environment has hijacked this system. Every notification, every like, every bit of novel information we consume triggers a surge of dopamine. This creates a powerful feedback loop, the dopamine loop, that keeps us coming back for more, even when we know it's not good for us. This is the foundation of the attention economy, where our attention is the commodity being fought over. Social media platforms, apps, and websites are designed to capture and hold our attention for as long as possible, often using techniques that exploit our brain's reward system. The more time we spend engaged with these platforms, the more revenue they generate. The problem is, this constant stimulation comes at a cost. Our brains weren't designed for this level of input, and the consequences are becoming increasingly clear. One of the most significant costs of constant stimulation is the erosion of our ability to focus deeply. Deep focus, also known as flow state, is characterized by a state of complete absorption in a task, where time seems to disappear and productivity soars. It's in these states of deep focus that we produce our best work, solve complex problems, and tap into our creativity. However, the constant barrage of distractions makes it increasingly difficult to achieve and maintain this state of deep focus. Each interruption, no matter how small, breaks our concentration and forces our brains to switch gears. This constant task switching is mentally taxing, leaving us feeling drained and overwhelmed. Over time, our brains become accustomed to this fragmented way of thinking, and our capacity for sustained attention diminishes. We become more easily distracted, more impulsive, and less able to engage in deep, meaningful work. The implications of this are far-reaching, impacting our ability to learn, to create, and to connect with the world around us. We live in a culture that glorifies multitasking, the ability to juggle multiple tasks simultaneously. We wear it as a badge of honor, proof of our efficiency and capability in a fast-paced world. However, the truth is, multitasking is largely an illusion. Our brains are not wired to effectively focus on multiple tasks at once, especially when those tasks are cognitively demanding. What we call multitasking is actually rapid task switching, where our attention jumps back and forth between different activities. While this may feel efficient, it comes at a cost. Each time we switch tasks, there's a cognitive cost, a lag time as our brains struggle to refocus and reorient themselves. The result is that we end up doing multiple things poorly rather than one thing well. Our work suffers, our stress levels increase, and we miss out on the satisfaction that comes from fully immersing ourselves in a single task. The constant stimulation and information overload of the digital age take a toll not only on our focus, but also on our overall well-being. Our brains are constantly bombarded with information, from news headlines to social media updates to work emails. This cognitive overload can lead to a range of negative consequences, including increased stress and anxiety. The constant stream of information can trigger our stress response, leading to feelings of anxiety, overwhelm, and restlessness. Sleep disturbances. The blue light emitted from our devices can interfere with our sleep-wake cycle, making it harder to fall asleep and stay asleep. Difficulty relaxing and unwinding. When our brains are constantly stimulated, it can be difficult to switch off and relax. This can lead to a state of chronic stress and make it harder to enjoy downtime. Decreased creativity and problem-solving abilities. Cognitive overload can impair our working memory, making it harder to think clearly, make decisions, and come up with creative solutions. Reclaiming our attention is not about disconnecting from technology entirely or rejecting the modern world. It's about becoming more intentional about how we use technology and how we manage our attention in a world that's constantly vying for it. It's about creating space for focus, for stillness, and for the kind of deep, meaningful engagement that brings joy and fulfillment. When we reclaim our attention, we reclaim our lives. We become more present in our relationships, more effective in our work, and more able to savor the simple joys of life. We rediscover the power of our own minds and the capacity for deep focus that lies within each of us. It's a journey that requires effort and commitment, but the rewards are well worth it. The path to reclaiming our attention is paved with small, consistent choices that prioritize our mental well-being. It's about setting boundaries with technology, carving out time for focus and stillness, and cultivating habits that support a calm and clear mind. It's about recognizing that our attention is precious, a finite resource that deserves to be guarded and nurtured. By making conscious choices about how we spend our attention, we can break free from the grip of the attention economy and reclaim our focus, our creativity, and our peace of mind. Let's paint a familiar picture. You sit down with the best of intentions. Maybe you're finally tackling that writing project, diving into a research paper, or simply trying to enjoy a few pages of a captivating novel. You clear your workspace, brew a cup of tea, and settle in, determined to focus. But then, it happens. A subtle tug at the edge of your awareness. Perhaps it's the faint vibration of your phone signaling a new message. Or maybe it's the alluring pull of a nearby tab open to your favorite social media platform. Whatever the source, that initial flicker of distraction is often all it takes to derail our best intentions. We tell ourselves it will just be a quick check, a momentary diversion from the task at hand. But as we all know too well, those seemingly harmless detours rarely end there. One notification leads to another, one article spirals into a rabbit hole of endless scrolling, and minutes quickly melt away into an abyss of lost time and fragmented attention. This, my friends, is the familiar tug of distraction, the siren song of the digital age that beckons us away from focus and into a whirlpool of fragmented attention. What begins as a minor annoyance, a brief interruption in our flow, quickly escalates into a vicious cycle of frustration and diminishing returns. As we give in to distractions more frequently, our tolerance for sustained focus wanes. We find ourselves checking our phones instinctively, scanning headlines without even realizing we're doing it, and constantly seeking out that next hit of novelty and stimulation. Our brains, wired for reward, become accustomed to this constant influx of information, and we crave the dopamine rush that accompanies each new notification or update. But this constant state of mental juggling comes at a cost. Our work becomes increasingly fragmented, characterized by half-finished tasks, scattered thoughts, and a pervasive sense of being perpetually behind. We find it harder to immerse ourselves in activities that require sustained attention, and our capacity for deep thought and creativity suffers. The more we succumb to these distractions, the more frustrated we become, fueling a cycle of diminishing focus and increasing dissatisfaction. One of the most insidious aspects of the attention spiral is its gradual nature. It rarely announces itself with a dramatic flourish, but rather creeps in through a series of seemingly insignificant choices. We tell ourselves, just one more email, just one more video, just one more scroll, each time justifying the delay of our true intentions with a promise of eventual focus. But this slippery slope of just one more thing quickly leads us down a path of diminishing returns. We become masters of self-deception, convincing ourselves that we're still in control, that we can stop at any time. But the reality is, the more we indulge in these distractions, the harder it becomes to resist their allure. The dopamine loop tightens its grip, and we find ourselves increasingly drawn towards the quick hits of novelty and stimulation, even as our larger goals and aspirations fade into the background. In our hyper-connected world, we often confuse stimulation for rest. We mistake the constant influx of information and entertainment for genuine relaxation, failing to recognize that true rest requires a different kind of engagement, one characterized by stillness, quiet contemplation, and a detachment from the digital world. When we're constantly bombarded with stimuli, our minds never truly get a break. Even when we're not actively engaged in a task, our brains are still processing information, filtering notifications, and responding to the demands of the digital world. This constant mental activity is exhausting, leaving us feeling drained and depleted even after hours of screen time. True rest, on the other hand, requires us to create space for silence, to disconnect from the digital noise, and to allow our minds to wander freely without the constraints of external demands. It's in these moments of quiet contemplation that our brains can truly recharge, our creativity can flourish, and we can reconnect with our inner selves. Perhaps the most disheartening consequence of the attention spiral is the erosion of self-trust it engenders. As we repeatedly succumb to distractions, failing to follow through on our intentions and betraying our own commitments, we begin to internalize a narrative of inadequacy. We start to believe that we're simply not capable of sustained focus, that we're somehow wired differently, lacking the discipline and willpower to thrive in a world of constant stimulation. This negative self-talk becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, reinforcing our belief that we're fighting a losing battle against our own biology. We become resigned to a life of fragmented attention, accepting distraction as an inevitable part of the modern experience. But this narrative is false. Our brains are capable of extraordinary focus and concentration, but we need to create the conditions that allow these abilities to flourish. We need to reclaim our attention not as a Herculean feat of self-discipline but as an act of self-compassion, recognizing that our minds, like our bodies, deserve to be treated with care and respect. The first step in breaking free from the attention spiral is recognizing that you're caught in its grip. It's about acknowledging the patterns of distraction, the justifications, and the self-sabotage that keep you tethered to the endless cycle of stimulation. Once you've identified the signs, you can begin to challenge the negative narrative that keeps you trapped. Remind yourself that your attention is not a fixed trait, but rather a muscle that can be strengthened with practice and intentionality. You are not powerless against the allure of distraction. You have the ability to choose where you direct your attention, to cultivate habits that support focus and clarity, and to reclaim your mental space as your own. We often imagine focused individuals as superhuman, possessing an almost mythical ability to concentrate effortlessly for hours on end. We picture them as immune to distractions, effortlessly navigating the demands of the modern world with laser-like precision. But this idealized image of focus can be more harmful than helpful. It sets an unrealistic standard, making us feel inadequate when we inevitably fall short. It also obscures a fundamental truth. Focus isn't about possessing some rare, inherent ability. It's about understanding how our minds work and creating the conditions that allow focus to flourish. It's time to move beyond the myth of the focused superhero and embrace a more realistic and empowering understanding of what it means to be truly present and engaged. Focus isn't something you either have or don't have. It's not a fixed trait like eye color or height. Instead, it's a state of mind, a way of being that is cultivated through practice and intentionality. Think of it like sleep. We don't simply have sleep. We create the conditions that allow us to fall asleep and stay asleep. A dark room, a comfortable bed, a quiet environment. Similarly, focus requires us to create the mental and environmental conditions that allow our minds to settle, to concentrate, and to engage deeply with the task at hand. This means shifting our perspective from seeing focus as something we need to force to something we cultivate. It's about understanding that our brains are not static entities, but rather dynamic, adaptable organs that respond to the environments we create for them. Just as a gardener carefully prepares the soil before planting seeds, we must create the fertile ground for focus to take root and grow. This involves paying attention to both our internal and external environments, recognizing that our minds are most receptive to focus when they feel safe, supported, and free from unnecessary distractions. Internally, this might involve practicing mindfulness meditation to calm the incessant chatter of our thoughts, setting clear intentions for how we want to spend our time, and cultivating a sense of self-compassion when we inevitably get distracted. Externally, it's about creating a physical space that supports focus, a clutter-free workspace, a quiet environment, and designated times and places where we can disconnect from the digital world without interruption. Our brains are wired for survival, constantly scanning our environment for potential threats. When we're bombarded with distractions and demands on our attention, our brains interpret this as a sign that we're in a state of danger, triggering our stress response and making it difficult to focus. To create the conditions for focus, we need to signal to our brains that we're safe, that we're not in a constant state of fight or flight. This is where practices like mindfulness, deep breathing, and spending time in nature become so powerful. They help to calm our nervous systems, reduce stress hormones, and create a sense of inner peace that allows our minds to settle and concentrate. When we feel safe and supported, our brains are more likely to enter a state of flow, a term coined by psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi to describe the state of complete absorption in an activity. In flow, we lose track of time, our sense of self fades away, and we become fully immersed in the present moment. This is the state of optimal focus, where creativity flourishes, productivity soars, and we experience a deep sense of satisfaction and fulfillment. Our brains are incredibly adaptable, but this adaptability can work against us. Just as we can train our brains to crave constant stimulation and novelty, we can also retrain them to find peace and focus in stillness and intentionality. This means becoming aware of the subtle ways in which we've conditioned ourselves to become slaves to distraction. It's about noticing the automatic urge to check our phones, the Pavlovian response to notifications, and the insidious belief that we always need to be connected. Once we've identified these habits, we can begin to gently dismantle them, replacing them with more intentional choices. This might involve setting specific times to check email and social media, using website blockers to reduce online distractions, or simply practicing the art of sitting still without reaching for our devices. In a world that constantly demands our attention, learning to say no is not just a productivity hack, it's an act of self-preservation. It's about recognizing that our time and energy are precious resources that deserve to be protected and invested wisely. This means saying no to distractions that don't align with our values or goals, whether it's endless scrolling on social media, attending every meeting we're invited to, or feeling obligated to respond to every email immediately. It also means saying yes to ourselves, to our need for rest, for quiet contemplation, and for the activities that bring us joy and nourish our souls. By embracing the power of no, we create space for the things that truly matter, allowing focus and clarity to emerge naturally from a place of intentionality and peace. Even with the best of intentions, our minds will wander. Distractions are an inevitable part of life, and expecting to achieve a state of perpetual focus is unrealistic. The key is not to berate ourselves when our minds inevitably stray, but to cultivate a gentle, compassionate approach to refocusing. Notice when your attention has drifted, acknowledge the distraction without judgment, and gently guide your attention back to the task at hand. This is where practices like mindfulness meditation can be incredibly helpful. Meditation isn't about emptying our minds of all thoughts. It's about training our minds to become aware of our thoughts without getting swept away by them. It's about cultivating the ability to observe our thoughts with a sense of detachment, allowing us to gently redirect our attention when it wanders. Focus isn't something you force, it's something you cultivate. It's about creating the conditions, both internal and external, that allow your mind to settle, to concentrate, and to enter a state of flow. It's about embracing the understanding that focus is a journey, not a destination. There will be days when your mind feels scattered, when distractions seem insurmountable, and when focus feels like an elusive dream. Be kind to yourself on those days. Remember that even small steps in the right direction, a few minutes of meditation, a short walk in nature, a conscious effort to minimize distractions, can make a difference. Trust that with patience, persistence, and a commitment to creating the conditions for clarity, you can reclaim your focus, rediscover the power of your own mind, and experience the deep satisfaction that comes from being fully present and engaged in the richness of your life. Rebuilding focus isn't about monumental shifts or overnight transformations. It's about the subtle art of micro-habits, those seemingly small, consistent actions that, over time, create a profound shift in our relationship with our attention. Think of micro-habits as gentle nudges, guiding our minds towards clarity and presence one step at a time. They're not about striving for perfection or adding more to our already full plates, but rather about integrating small, sustainable practices into our daily routines. The beauty of micro-habits lies in their simplicity. They don't require superhuman willpower or drastic life overhauls. Instead, they work by gradually rewiring our brains, creating neural pathways that support focus, presence, and a greater sense of peace. In this section, we'll explore 5 powerful micro-habits that, when practiced consistently, can help you reclaim your focus, reduce overwhelm, and cultivate a calmer, more centered mind. How you begin your day sets the tone for everything that follows. Instead of immediately reaching for your phone, scrolling through social media, or diving headfirst into the demands of the day, consider gifting yourself 10 minutes of morning silence. This isn't about adding another item to your to-do list. It's about creating a sacred space for stillness before the day's demands begin to pull you in countless directions. During these 10 minutes, resist the urge to fill the silence. Simply sit comfortably, close your eyes if you wish, and turn your attention inward. Notice the rise and fall of your breath. Feel the weight of your body in the chair. Observe any thoughts or emotions that arise without judgment, like clouds passing through the sky. These 10 minutes of morning silence serve as a powerful reset, a gentle reminder that you're not a slave to the demands of the external world. They create a buffer between you and the constant stimulation of modern life, allowing you to begin your day from a place of greater clarity, presence, and peace. In a world of constant multitasking and fragmented attention, the ability to focus deeply on a single task for an extended period can feel like a superpower. The 25-minute focus block is a simple yet effective technique to reclaim your focus and boost your productivity, all while training your brain to resist distractions. Here's how it works. First, choose your task. Select one task that you want to focus on for the next 25 minutes. It could be anything from writing a report to reading a book to working on a creative project. Next, eliminate distractions. Silence your phone, close unnecessary tabs on your computer, and let those around you know that you're not to be disturbed. Then, set a timer for 25 minutes. Once the timer starts, commit to giving your undivided attention to the task at hand. Resist the urge to check email, scroll through social media, or multitask. Finally, take a 5-minute break. When the timer goes off, reward yourself with a 5-minute break. Get up, stretch, move your body, or simply close your eyes and rest. Repeat this cycle 3 to 4 times throughout the day, and you'll be amazed at how much you can accomplish. Our brains are wired to seek out novelty and reward, a natural response that's been hijacked by the constant stimulation of the digital age. Every notification, every like, every bit of new information triggers a surge of dopamine, creating a cycle of craving and dependence that can be difficult to break. Enter the dopamine fasting hour, a dedicated period each day where you consciously abstain from activities that trigger those dopamine rushes. This means no phones, no social media, no video games, no junk food, no TV. Instead, use this hour to engage in activities that nourish your mind, body, and soul. Read a book, take a walk in nature, meditate, spend time with loved ones, cook a healthy meal, or simply sit in silence and allow your mind to wander. By consciously reducing your exposure to dopamine-inducing activities, you're essentially resetting your brain's reward system, making it easier to find pleasure and satisfaction in simpler, more meaningful things. In our always-on, hyper-stimulated world, boredom has become a dirty word, something to be avoided at all costs. We reach for our phones at the slightest hint of boredom, filling every spare moment with distractions. But boredom, far from being the enemy, is actually a catalyst for creativity, insight, and self-discovery. It's in those moments of quietude, when our minds are allowed to wander freely without external stimulation, that our most creative ideas often emerge. So, how do we rediscover the gift of boredom in a world that's constantly vying for our attention? Start by scheduling boredom breaks into your day. These could be as simple as taking a walk without your phone, sitting in nature without any distractions, or simply staring out the window and allowing your mind to wander. You might be surprised by what you discover when you allow yourself to be bored. Ideas might bubble to the surface, insights might emerge, and you might even find yourself feeling more connected to the present moment. Our physical environment has a profound impact on our mental state. Clutter, both physical and digital, can contribute to feelings of overwhelm, anxiety, and distraction. Our visual field is constantly processing information, and when that information is chaotic and disorganized, it takes a toll on our cognitive resources. Creating a sense of visual clarity, both in our physical surroundings and our digital spaces, can have a calming effect on our minds, making it easier to focus, relax, and think clearly. Start by decluttering your workspace. Remove any unnecessary items, organize your papers, and create a sense of order. Extend this practice to your digital spaces as well. Clean up your desktop, organize your files, and unsubscribe from email lists that no longer serve you. You might also consider incorporating elements of nature into your environment. Studies have shown that even small doses of nature, like a potted plant or a nature-inspired photograph, can reduce stress, improve focus, and boost creativity. These 5 micro-habits, while seemingly simple, are powerful signals to your nervous system. They communicate to your brain that you're safe, that you're not in a constant state of fight or flight, and that it's okay to relax, to focus, and to engage deeply with the present moment. When our nervous systems feel safe and supported, our minds naturally settle into a state of greater clarity and focus. Distractions become less alluring, our thoughts become more organized, and we're able to tap into our innate capacity for deep work and creative flow. Think of these micro-habits as seeds that you're planting in the fertile ground of your attention. With consistent care and attention, these seeds will take root, grow, and blossom into a life of greater focus, purpose, and peace. The transformation from a state of scattered attention to a place of centered focus is a gradual journey, not a destination. There will be days when your mind feels like a whirlwind of thoughts, when distractions seem insurmountable, and when even 10 minutes of silence feels like an eternity. Be kind to yourself on those days. Remember that you're not striving for perfection but rather for progress. Each time you choose to engage in one of these micro habits, you're taking a step towards reclaiming your attention, and those small steps over time create a profound shift in how you experience the world. One of the biggest obstacles to developing new habits, especially when it comes to something as elusive as focus, is the pursuit of perfection. We set unrealistic expectations for ourselves, striving for a level of focus that's unsustainable, and then we beat ourselves up when we inevitably fall short. Release the pressure to be perfect. Embrace the messy, imperfect reality of building new habits. There will be days when you forget to practice your micro habits, when distractions derail your best intentions, and when your mind feels anything but focused. And that's okay. The key is to approach this journey with a spirit of self-compassion, recognizing that setbacks are a natural part of the process. Instead of dwelling on your mistakes, simply acknowledge them, learn from them, and gently guide yourself back to the path of intentional living. The beauty of these micro habits is that their benefits extend far beyond our own personal experience. As we cultivate greater focus, presence, and intentionality in our own lives, we naturally become more present and engaged in our relationships, our work, and our communities. Imagine being fully present during conversations, listening deeply to those around you without the distraction of your phone or your to-do list. Picture yourself bringing a renewed sense of focus and clarity to your work, tackling challenges with greater ease and creativity. The ripple effect of these micro habits can transform not only our own lives, but also the lives of those around us, creating a more mindful, connected, and compassionate world. Reclaiming your focus isn't a distant dream. It's a choice you can make right now. It's about taking small, consistent steps each day to create a life where clarity, presence, and deep focus can thrive. Start by choosing one of the micro habits we've explored and commit to practicing it consistently for the next week. Notice how it feels, how it impacts your energy, your mood, and your ability to focus. Remember, you don't have to do it all at once. This is a journey, not a race. Embrace the process, be kind to yourself, and trust that with each small step, you're moving closer to a life of greater focus, purpose, and peace. As we conclude our exploration of focus in a world of constant distraction, I want to leave you with a sense of hope, a reminder that you are not powerless against the digital deluge. You have the agency, the inherent capacity within you to reclaim your attention, to rediscover the quiet power of a focused mind. Throughout this journey, we've deconstructed the myth of the focused superhero, recognizing that focus isn't some innate ability bestowed upon a select few, but rather a state of being, a skill that can be cultivated through practice, intentionality, and a willingness to create the conditions that allow clarity to flourish. It's about understanding that our brains are not static entities, hardwired for distraction, but rather dynamic, adaptable organs capable of remarkable feats of concentration when we create the environments that support them. Remember, reclaiming your focus is not about achieving some idealized state of perpetual concentration, a world devoid of distractions where your mind operates with machine-like precision. It's not about banishing technology, becoming a productivity robot, or silencing the natural ebb and flow of your thoughts. It's about creating space, both internal and external, where focus can emerge organically, where your mind can settle, breathe, and engage deeply with the task at hand. the conversation, the present moment, without feeling tethered to the endless demands of the digital world. It's a process of gentle unfolding, a gradual shift from a state of scattered reactivity to a place of greater intentionality, presence, and peace. You don't have to overhaul your entire life to reclaim your focus. Start small. Choose one micro-habit that resonates with you. Perhaps it's 10 minutes of morning silence, a 25-minute focus block, or a dopamine fasting hour. Commit to practicing this one habit consistently for the next week, noticing how it feels, how it impacts your energy, your mood, your ability to be present. Remember, progress, not perfection, is the goal. There will be days when distractions win, when your mind feels scattered, and when even a few minutes of focus feel impossible. Be kind to yourself on those days. Acknowledge the challenges without judgment, and gently guide yourself back to the path of intentionality. In a world that constantly pulls us away from the present moment, the ability to focus, to be truly present, is a gift, not only to ourselves, but also to the world around us. When we're present, we listen more deeply, we connect more authentically, and we experience the richness of life with a sense of wonder and appreciation that's often lost in the digital haze. So as you go about your day, remember the power of your attention. Choose to direct it wisely, to invest it in the things that truly matter, and to savor the gift of presence in a world that's constantly vying for your distraction. And if today's message helped you breathe deeper or think more clearly, the power of clarity is the next step. It's my guide to quieting the noise and reclaiming your mind, one reset at a time. You'll find it now on Amazon, paperback and Kindle. Just search The Power of Clarity by Jeremy Jarvis, or follow the link in the description.